Hey everybody, we're going to do something a little different today. Today, I am going to tell and retell the epic tale of Joe Denver and Ozzie Pete. Tomorrow, we'll be back to our regular programming, and you'll see my typical city-to-city daily vlog that you come to expect. But for now, enjoy the fable, the myth that has grown legs, and what really happened. So, grab your favorite snack, something to drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the epic tale of Joe Denver and Ozzie Pete. Buen camino. That is the road that we were just walking next to, okay? And now we are in this more idyllic setting. I expect maybe no traffic on this road. And I have a bit of separation between the gentleman behind me, and I don't see anybody in front of me. So I think now I'm going to start trying to piece together this story in a logical way. The epic tale of Joseph and Peter. It's a working title, okay. Could be Joe Denver and Ozzie Pete. The epic tale of Joe Denver and Ozzie Pete. And I think the reason I feel like I want to capture this, because this is a living story that has grown its own legs. I want to make sure I capture what's real, and I want to capture how it started, the true events, how the legend has grown its legs, what those legs look like, and then I want to provide some context and maybe set the record straight, if it is to be straightened. As always, it is for the audience to decide. So, I think my approach, my methodology to forming what will be, I hope, a 5-minute story that I can tell people when they say, oh, I heard about this thing, is to kind of walk through a sequence of events. This is what you saw. This is what people think happened. This is how the story has changed over the past 4 or 5 days. And then this is maybe what everybody should hear about what happened. Okay? So let's start with kind of what made me think about this. Okay. And no more skirting around the topic. This is the story of the day that Pete and I drank too much. Both of us drank too much. Both suffered from a lack of self-control. And to be absolutely clear, neither one of us got in trouble. Neither one of us did anything bad or anything offensive to anybody else. We did not damage anything. We did not cause too much of a ruckus, a tiny ruckus, but it was a fun ruckus. And in talking to everybody who was present for pieces and parts of that day, we were a good time. We were celebrating in brotherhood. This was not a competition. There's no bad blood. This is all fun right now. And the legend has grown in a fun way. And the reason I want to do this is because we've kind of been, at first we were both victims in the story, passive victims. And then I think maybe I was the first one to become an active victim of my own choosing. And victim's not really the right word, but somebody who is maybe a little embarrassed about what he did. Okay, that's a fair statement. And then I think it became a little bit of a contest in the way that we were talking about it. And then I became the loser in the contest. And that is why I want to provide this context. Okay. This is going to be quite a bit. I'm processing all my thoughts, and I will take breaks. Okay, so that's how we got here. I do want to turn around and show you this cute little town we're walking through. I mean, look at this. I love this. Definitely built in a different time or refurnished in a different time than, for example, this one. I love this. I wonder what life would be like in a place like this. I suppose it would depend on what you do for a living, or if you're done with your actual life's work and you are, maybe you're done with your life's work and you can just retire. This one looks like it could use a bit of help. There's holes in the wall, the roof's collapsing, it's being overgrown. But the stone foundations are still good. Clean that thing up. Refinish the inside, put some insulation in there. How incredible. I mean, your daily life is not going to be full of the typical metropolitan comforts of, say, Denver or otherwise, or Madrid or Barcelona. But it would be a different existence, I think, full of peace. And perhaps community would probably play a bigger role. Okay. So that's the context. That's why I think it's important to set the record straight, and for me not only to be able to prepare this story so I can correct or provide context when a new person says, I've heard about this. I've heard about you, Joe Denver. And also next time I see Pete, I can add this supplemental information to the story. And I'm curious to see what he does with it as the next step. Buenos dias. So, I wonder how far it is to the next stop. Okay. So what you saw in the video, if I remember correctly, what you saw was I was checking in at Albergue Tío Pepe. Okay, you saw me do that. This was about noon, maybe a quarter after noon. And as I was finishing check-in, Pete came in looking a bit bedraggled from a long walk. And he was considering moving on to the next opportunity for an albergue. He doesn't speak Spanish. Tío Pepe didn't speak English. I helped broker that conversation. So we learned that, yes, Pete, you were going to have to walk another 10K to get to another albergue. And so I said, Pete, stay here. We'll have some fun tonight. Again, we are friends. He did. And immediately, before he was done checking out, we had 2 large beers on the counter. To be fair, there was quite a bit of foam in them, but they were not cortos. They were not cañones. They were not cortos. They were not cañas. They were cañones, which are the big boy beers. We finished those, and Pete got us another round. So and while he was doing that, I went upstairs to claim my bed. I noticed that we were in a small room with only 2 bunks. I had claimed one of the lowers, and I know that he has a bad hip. And I went downstairs, I said, Pete, before anyone else gets here, you're going to want to go and just throw your stuff on that other lower bunk. He said, oh, thanks, mate. I'm going to do that. That's my bad Pete impression. It was terrible, by the way, that impression. I got to work on it for the telling of the story, I think. Mental note, work on my impression of Pete's Ozzie accent. Okay. He comes back down. Neither one of us had showered. We didn't do any laundry. We decided after those beers, we were going to go to the store. You saw us go to the tienda. I picked up some things. He picked up some things. We went back to Albergue Tío Pepe. You saw us lay out a spread of some of our day-old foods. A combination of cheeses, a bunch of chorizo, and jamon, some chocolate. And Pete had bought some nasty tinned octopus and tinned mussels, maybe, if I'm remembering. Just foul stuff. And I bought us 2 glasses of vino tinto, whatever that was on the house. Pete is a bit of a wine aficionado, makes it seem like he knows a ton about wine. He's a bit of a wine snob, like me, a bit of a wine snob that would prefer to drink not bad wine. And here it is so affordable. So we put back those 2 house wines, and he went to get a bottle of La Rioja. I believe it was a Reserve Crianza. Reserve, I think, refers to a particular year or vintage, if I'm not mistaken, and Crianza has to do with the way that it's aged, maybe a minimum amount of aging in a certain fashion. And other people started joining the table. You saw that. There was, by the time all was said and done, this is over a couple of hours. You saw Matt from New York, young guy. You saw Rod from the UK. He's the veteran project management specialist that I've walked with and talked to. You saw Mike and his son Lincoln from the UK traveling together. It was Mike's birthday in Leon just 2 days before that, maybe even just 1 day before that. And then there was a lady, I forget where she was from. That's not important. I'm just telling you, you saw this happening in real time. We ended up going through, let's see, he got another bottle of that same. We shared it with the folks. Some folks started leaving. I got a 3rd bottle. We drank it all. I don't think I had a glass of water that entire time. And we were drinking and having a very good time with our friends. It gets a little blurry for me at this point. I believe I fell out of a chair, which made everybody laugh and was fun, and nobody got injured. I might have gotten a little bruised, but I'm no worse for wear on it. And then we went to another albergue. We backtracked and went to another albergue. I don't know why. I think you saw the video of me, and I don't know how I got in there, but I found myself in one of the dark dorm rooms petting a black lab. I loved it. It was incredible. I was sitting on the floor, very drunk at this time, petting a black lab. We sat out on the terrace or in the garden of the albergue with Patrick and Liz from New Zealand and had another drink, maybe 2. It's a bit blurry, as I said. And then we went back to Albergue Tio Pepe. Oh yeah, I saw Yuse from Portugal, southern Portugal. And there were other folks, I don't exactly remember who it was. I would have to look at the video. But I cut out some of those where I was very clearly too drunk and I was kind of really embarrassed. So I kind of, in the video that I posted, I fast forwarded to the end of the night at this point. But I do have these recordings and pictures along the way. We went back to Albergue Tio Pepe for the pilgrim dinner, which wasn't great, but we ate it. It was fine. The pilgrim dinner, the pilgrim menu, came with a bottle of wine, and I decided to be a nice person and pour the wine for us. The first pour was for Pete, and I missed the glass entirely. I must have dumped 2 or 3 ounces of wine on the table. And so, very drunk. We finished that bottle of wine with dinner also. That was not the end of it. The very last thing that I remember doing before we went to bed is, for some reason, I wanted a nightcap. Why did I need a nightcap? Why did I want one? I can't answer this question, but what I do know is that I asked Pete if he ever drank vermouth, and he said he had never had vermouth. So I got us 2 glasses of Zagura Rojo vermouth. We went out onto the terrace. He took a couple sips and said that he didn't like it. So I drank my entire glass of vermouth, and then I finished his. And the last recording of the evening, you saw me sitting in the library at Albergue Tio Pepe with still a half glass of vermouth because I couldn't finish it and I needed to pass out. Hello, buen camino. Buenos dias, buenos dias. Okay, so that's what happened. And then, of course, it was a stormy night. Window was open. You've heard all this. Window was open, stormy night. Pete and I slept through the entire storm. The guy from Ireland who was above me, I think his name was Tom, he ended up waking up in the middle of the night because rain was coming in through the window. Again, I slept through this. And when I woke up in the morning, it was sweltering hot because the window had been closed. And I looked on the ground and there was a wet puddle and I thought, oh God, what have I done? Hilarious. No, I didn't pee on the floor or dump over anything. Just the window was open. Okay. That is the entire series of events from the day. We're not missing anything. I'm a little fuzzy. I pieced it together by talking it to people, and I've got recordings and pictures along the way. That's it. Job done. Now, we're going to shift gears. And we're going to tell you about how this story and the events have spread to other people. Mind you, some people came in and out throughout the day. The folks at our albergue that came early in the afternoon when we had the spread on the table. The folks at the other albergue who saw Pete and I after we had been drinking quite a bit and for some reason decided we need to drink at their albergue. And then at the end of the night, it was just me and Pete, and you saw me with the Pete's half-finished glass of vermouth that I could only finish half of. He took a couple sips, and he said, no, I don't like this. Now, I was very, very, very embarrassed with myself when I woke up the next morning. And I was in a lot of pain. I can't remember the last time I had a hangover like that. But I got up and walked. As a matter of fact, Pete, I believe, was up at something like 5 in the morning, making a complete racket in the room. He couldn't sleep either. And I remember I got up and I said to Pete as he was making a bunch of racket in the room. And he doesn't like when other people do that. So I went out, I got up, used the bathroom, and I said to Pete in the hallway, I said, thank you. I'm sorry that I got so drunk, but thank you for being a good friend and making sure I got back here okay. He said, you got nothing to worry about, mate, nothing to apologize for. We were in this together. We are friends, no doubt about it. And again, we were drinking together in celebration. So, he packed all his shit. It was very loud. He turned on the light in the room, and I remember him saying, I'm the guy that I hate. I've turned into the guy that I hate by doing this. No problem, Pete. It's okay. The Irish guy said, no problem. We all have our days. So, I put on my stuff and I walked. And as I saw people throughout that day, my first instinct was to go on Joseph's apology tour. I'm so sorry. I'm very embarrassed with myself. I don't drink that much. And the problem was I went drink for drink with Pete the Ozzie, who, by the way, is a man mountain. The guy, he's at least 150% of my body mass. And as I started to joke on that day and subsequent days, his blood type is Vino Tinto Reserva. He is a pro. So I was at a bit of a disadvantage, but I will not take the handicap. And perhaps it was my mistake in delivering the message in that way. I think those were the seeds of competition. trying to go drink for drink with a giant Ozzie as a 155-pound American. And again, that's not how it was. So, over the day, we would meet people. It became clear that I hadn't done anything bad. Neither of us had. We didn't offend anybody. We really didn't bother anybody. As a matter of fact, a lot of people took joy in how happy we were, how fun we were being. Maybe a little boisterous, but we didn't bother anybody. And we're both happy drunks, right? So, despite the fact that the wheels definitely fell off for both of us, I think everybody was happy, and it was a fun time. And so every time I would meet somebody and apologize and say, did I see you? Did I not see you? It was either, yes, you did see me and it was great, no worries. Or no, you didn't, but I heard about you popping in and no worries. So I stopped apologizing soon thereafter. And, every once in a while, over the next 2 days, I think, every time I see somebody, I was like, just to make sure I didn't do anything bad, right? No, it's been confirmed. It was totally cool. The embarrassment is all in here for my lack of self-control. So, the next day, I believe, was the walk into Astorga. And I popped in towards the end of the day for a quick cafe. And I saw Rod from the UK and Jason from Lakewood and a couple Aussie ladies that he's been traveling with who had taken the short path, and so they were ahead of me. And the Aussie ladies said, what did you do to Pete? And I said, what did Pete do to me? I tried to go toe-to-toe with him and lost. This was my fault. I am creating this legend that Pete has defeated the American. And this is how it kind of grew. This was how it was told for a couple of days. And make no mistake, I know that I'm going on, but this is really important for me. And it's funny, make no mistake, word has traveled a couple days ahead and a couple days behind on the Camino. Joe Denver and Ozzie Pete. And then yesterday, I saw one of those Aussie ladies. And she said, we were sitting down at a table talking with a different group. And Pete said, I didn't know the American was going to be so easy to put down. Oof. Hold on now. I will admit, that statement appears to be a fruit tree of a seed which I had planted myself. But then, as I was laying down to bed last night, I don't know why, something popped in my head and said, oh, no. Let us not revise history. And that quote from Mark Twain came into my head. First, get your facts straight, and then you can distort them as you see fit. So, this is me clarifying the facts. And as a palate cleanser, this is what I'm walking into. I do have some work to do in editing this story down. As I turn around, I see I've been talking for 22 minutes. It's going to dominate today's video, but I hope it's a fun yarn that I am. What do you do with yarns? Knitting? Whatever. Bad metaphor aside. Okay. If this was a movie, we would do the rewind to the day. I'm checking in at Tio Pepe. Pete comes in. I do the translation. Pete books a room. Round of beers 1. Cañons, the big guys. Cañon, round 2. Grocery store. Bad wine with a spread. Pilgrims join. Bottle 1, bottle 2, bottle 3. Other albergue. Black lab in the dorm room. Another round of drinks. Back to Tio Pepe for dinner. Joe spills the wine. Joe fell out of a chair earlier. We finish our dinner. Nightcap time and cut. This is where we need to add some more information. and where I may take a little umbrage with any notion that Ozzie Pete defeated Joe Denver. Here's why. It has conveniently been swept under the rug that Pete did not go drink for drink with Joe. Joe drank an extra 1.5 glasses, big glasses, of vermouth. And for anyone who knows what vermouth is, it is a fortified wine. By definition, it is fortified with a spirit to make it stronger than wine. Pete did not go drink for drink with Joe. Joe drank way more than Pete. To wit, and additionally, the next morning, Pete was the one that was off his rocker and was out of order in the room and couldn't get his shit together. And additionally, as one last testament to the power of Joe Denver, the American, Joe walked 27K to Astorga with his backpack. I believe Pete took the spiritual bus. He didn't carry no backpack. He walked no miles. So, if this had been a competition between Joe Denver, the American, and Pete, the Man Mountain Ozzie, who would you say won? Buen camino.